Fox 2 presents Hancock and Kelly.
Good Sunday morning and happy Memorial Day weekend. Welcome to Hancock and Kelly on Fox 2, where we take on the top issues of the week. On the right, John Hancock.
Morning.
And on the left, Michael Kelly.
Hello there.
I'm Andy Banker. On the agenda this morning, St. Louis Alderwoman Cara Spencer says she is running for mayor, making it a rematch between her and Mayor Tishaura Jones. Missouri Governor Mike Parson says the state will not cover the legal fees of Republican lawmakers accused of making false allegations about the mass shooting at the Super Bowl victory rally in Kansas City for the Chiefs. President Biden hopes to clobber Donald Trump with a social media post from Mr. Trump, which called to mind Nazi Germany with talk of a unified Reich if Trump is elected again. And our quote of the week is from the Madison County Sheriff in Edwardsville, Illinois, about a new sergeant helping to keep the peace in the county jail. The sergeant is a dog. Also, Republican Nikki Haley changes her tune, and a St. Louis news outlet for more than 40 years, the Riverfront Times, is shuttered without warning. We begin with a hot political race taking shape, not for the White House, but for St. Louis Mayor. Alderwoman Cara Spencer says she's running, setting up a rematch of the last mayor's race in 2021.
I want to see us grow. I want to see us have safer communities, and I want to see us just do the work of being a city.
Mayor Tishaura Jones beat Spencer in a close race by winning by less than 4%. Now, things have changed considerably since the two debated here on Fox 2. During Jones's first term, the city's population has been shrinking at an alarming rate. So is the level of city services, including police response, street repair, and garbage pickup. How do you think this race stacks up for round two, Michael?
Similar to round one, which was extremely close. I don't know, when you put the preponderance of their political beliefs, that Cara Spencer and Tishaura Jones are that different. I think where Cara Spencer may have an opportunity to make some movement in this race is to be talking about policing and basic government services. The real question is whether or not voters are inspired to show up and vote on those things, because to this point, for the last decade or so, we've seen them voting on more social-oriented issues. But with crime and infrastructure being the way that it is, I'm hopeful that we're going to have a real discussion about the problems that exist and their solutions to fix them.
If Spencer is successful in setting the tone of this race and just keeps focusing on doing the work of being a city, picking up the garbage, having faster police response, can she win? Can she beat the incumbent?
Well, you would think that's a winning message. I have to believe, I haven't seen any polling data, but I would have to believe that a large majority of the residents of the city of St. Louis believe that their local government is on the wrong track. That typically portends poorly for an incumbent. So you would think Jones would be vulnerable. But the bigger problem is, you've got a situation where this same city just a few years ago re-elected Kim Gardner when she was completely incompetent, and she had a legitimate opponent in that primary. So if you're hoping for this electorate to come and make a change, I don't know that there's much precedent for that. But it seems to me that this is the message that Spencer needs to run on. I just don't know if it works.
When I spoke to the mayor last week when she announced her reelection, and one of the things she mentioned that she's battling would be voter fatigue, because this comes in the spring of 25, just a few months after we elect a new president and a new governor, and everyone's tired. There's just apathy starts to set in, even though it's a big, important race. How big of an issue is that? And also, this matters beyond the city of St. Louis, right? Totally. I mean, no matter where you live in the St. Louis region, you care about who the city's mayor is.
Yeah, voter fatigue definitely could be a problem. It's always been a problem with city elections. And then Mayor Jones and her allies put in this new system where we have multiple candidate voting, which drags it out over 2 elections, makes it even harder. I would think the mayor has shown that she's able to deliver her voters. If Cara Spencer can connect with everyday voters in the city of St. Louis who are dealing with what seems to be just ineptitude, I think that there can be a case made here. I don't expect much to be too different, though.
Yeah, that's a good point you mentioned about the way they do these goofy elections in the city. You can go in there and vote for everybody, Andy. Right. You can vote for Tishaura Jones and Cara Spencer and anybody else you want to vote for, and it all counts as one vote. Who came up with this brilliant idea? Elections are about choices, but this is another one of these progressive ideas that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, the mayor has ended her hiring freeze for the city of St. Louis. She announced the freeze in March, citing concerns that Republican state lawmakers might cut the city's 1% earnings tax. The legislative session ended with the tax remaining intact, so the mayor ended the freeze, which did not apply to police, fire, water, garbage, or the airport. The earnings tax survived, but the city is being sued by people who live and work outside the city but are employed for a company that is in the city. So there will be legal bills running up to defend the income tax, the 1% income tax in the city. Can the city afford to keep it, John?
Well, I don't think they can afford to lose it right now. It's their one source of revenue, but it's a diminishing source. And if this lawsuit prevails, it's going to be a huge gash in that money. And the problem you got is, what are you going to tax? You know, property values are what they are. Some huge, massive percentage of the property in the city of St. Louis is not for profit. You think about the hospitals and the universities and the nonprofit centers. They don't pay any property tax. So they've got a very difficult path to go. The earnings tax should be abolished, but I don't know how they're gonna make up for it. They're in a difficult position.
The city needs a game changer, right? I think everyone believes that. Wouldn't that be a big splash, getting rid of the 1%? Would that advertise the companies and say, hey,
Andy,
do business in St. Louis?
They're not able to meet their obligations right now with the money that they have. They're going to lose this lawsuit. And when they lose it, you're going to lose about 10, 20% of the earnings that come to the city of St. Louis. These aren't growing. This is a long-term systemic problem that exists inside the city of St. Louis that needs real thought processes and real plans to address. I'm hopeful that both of these mayoral candidates will do it, but I think sitting there saying we're in the midst of a renaissance when you're about to lose 10% of your budget, something's not adding up.
There's not a whole lot of renaissancing going on out there.
That was the mayor's claim, right, when she had her State of the City last week. St. Louis County could stand to lose millions in federal pandemic relief money as a feud between two top Democrats hits a stalemate. County Executive Sam Page is refusing to release $8 million for nonprofit groups, including a group that provides shelter to the victims of domestic violence. The county board chairwoman, Shalonda Webb, says Page is playing politics and holding the funds hostage. Page says he won't release it until the county council reverses budget cuts made last year. Michael, if the cash-strapped county doesn't spend the money by the end of the year, it goes back to the federal government.
Well, that's the real problem, right, is that this ARPA money's been with us both in the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County for 3-4 years, and we're still deciding how we're going to spend it. You know, St. Louis County used to...
Or lose it.
Yeah, St. Louis County used to be a place where of regular thought, normalcy. You were able to get away from a lot of the political infighting that exists in Jefferson City and in the city of St. Louis. These are two Democrats fighting with each other about dividing important money for our community. I don't know who's right. I don't really understand either of their arguments, but I think most voters don't care. Put the money out and do what you're supposed to do. Both of you have a responsibility to do that.
John?
Couple of thoughts here. Never thought I'd live to see a day where elected Democrats couldn't spend taxpayer money, but here we are. The second thought is, you know, they ought to take some of that money and enroll Sam Page in the Dale Carnegie course, because this guy can't get along with anybody. I've never seen anything like it. He's fighting with the Republicans. He's fighting with the Democrats. And he's got a 7-member county council, and he can't get along with 4 people so he could govern the place. I mean, he's got... This guy, you know, is not the best politician I've ever seen in action. Just put it that way.
Well, there's also a big feud among top Missouri Republicans, Governor Mike Parson and his hand-picked Attorney General Andrew Bailey. It has to do with the mass shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs victory rally and parade. A Kansas man has filed a defamation suit against 3 Republican lawmakers who he says falsely implicated him on social media as one of the shooters. The governor does not support Bailey's office defending the lawmakers in court. The governor says the state will not pay any damages that might be awarded against those lawmakers. Who's in the right here, John?
I think the governor. And, you know.
Bailey's moving forward. He's defending him.
Well, Bailey's going to defend him, and that's his prerogative to do. What the governor's saying is that if there's a settlement or they're found liable, the state's not going to pay those fines to the victim here. And I think the governor's right about that. You do have immunity for the speech you do on the floor of the legislature, just like Congress. That's important to protect. But this stuff on social media, you know, the taxpayers shouldn't have to bail you out for that. The governor's right about this.
Does it spell any trouble for Bailey's election chances?
No, this nuttiness is prevailing inside the Republican Party, and what this action that he's making puts the, you know, be damned the consequences, the law, or anything else. It's all about party and trying to win the next election. Thankfully, we have an adult, and who would have thought I'd be calling the governor an adult? But I mean, the governor is sitting here and saying, no, this is against our norms and against the law. We're not doing it. And kudos to the governor for standing up and showing backbone against a ridiculous idea.
Deep down, you love the governor.
I was going to say, we have another mark the tape moment.
Yeah.
Mike O'Kelly for Mike Parsley.
Yeah, well.
That's a good weekend. It's a holiday weekend. It is. Up next on Hancock and Kelly, President Biden's new attack on former President Trump and his so-called unified Reich. Plus, a fierce adversary becomes a new ally for Donald Trump. Nikki Haley for VP, maybe?